In this video, we're going to be looking at the Sentinel MT5 Expert Advisor by Mr. Luca Barone. So this bot looks pretty interesting because it's a currency grid from what I can tell, but it looks to be a rather well designed one. And he's being very transparent with what this is too. So he says based on discipline and consistency, there's built-in margin and drawdown protections. He's very much telling us what pairs it trades. He's telling us that there's a grid steps are limited and used only as a recovery logic, not as a core strategy. So he is being very transparent and telling us exactly what it's doing. The price is also very competitive, so I can certainly see this moving its way up to the MQL5 marketplace top. As we can see here, it's trading the Euro CHF, the CAD CHF, and the Euro CAD. So all three fairly slow, more mean reversion style currencies. Euro CAD less so. Like definitely Euro CHF is probably the best for this style of system. Just given that like obviously the European economy and the Swiss economy are so closely related that usually the pairs tend to move fairly sideways unless the Swiss bank decides to get creative as they did a few years ago and blew a lot of people's accounts. But generally speaking, it moves fairly sideways. At the same time, Canadian dollar is heavily correlated with the US dollar, so EuroCAD tends to, like in some ways, be a proxy for the Euro USD, so you have to be a bit careful about that. But overall, it can still be a very good pair to trade. And what we can see here is that he is encouraging fairly modest amounts of risk. He is using a grid, but there doesn't appear to be any lot scaling. And so far from what we can see here and just looking at the times, it's very clearly a grid, right? Like we're closing multiple positions at similar times. So probably there's an initial entry based on some sort of mean reversion signal. And then probably there's multiple other entries which are then triggered based on a grid if the position goes against it. So it looks to be a tried and classic grid strategy, but a fairly well developed one. And the reviews so far are pretty good. I know some of these guys. He also has a live signal, fairly new. And so far it looks pretty good. So I took the liberty of running a back test here on Vantage, and as we can see, a nice straight but very grid-esque equity curve, but not a crazy result. So here we went for a 50% return annually with a super low drawdown, and that's probably one of the better ways to do this. Clearly, it's very obviously running a grid system. Likely the trigger is some sort of oscillator. If we were to run a visual back test, if he hasn't hit it, we might actually be able to see the exact trigger of what's going on. Just taking a while to sync. Oh yeah, here we go. So RSI, he did not hide it. We know exactly why it's entering. It's just an RSI based trigger to enter. Yeah, it's an RSI in all of them. It's a 14-period RSI. And then if price goes against it, most likely he's entering a grid at a predefined distance. We can see that money management, grid distances, and pips. Yeah, it's actually very transparent. Like he's showing us exactly that, hey, you're entering with an RSI signal, and then if the position goes against it, we are going into grids. These are the sizes of the grids. And recovery is currently set to false, but if you want, you can also use a recovery multiplier. So this is a really straightforward but honest bot. We know what it's doing. If you like this style of system, if you like a grid system, this one would work. It's pretty cheap and cheerful. This has been done 1,000 times by other people, so it's not like anything kind of revolutionary or groundbreaking, but it seems to be, it is what it is, and most likely if you like this style of system, it could be for you. There's equity drawdowns. There are an equity drawdown protector. So then instead of essentially running a stop loss on a position level, you're running a stop loss on a total of the account level. So if you're somebody who wants to just chuck this in an account with $1,000 and kind of let it run, like a smaller account, this could very well be for you because you're capping your total portfolio. I wouldn't take your main portfolio and run this style of bot on it because there's still a risk element to it. But he is actually using stuff like capping the amount of grid steps, so your total risk is controlled. So he actually has done a lot of things right to properly manage the risk using this style of trading system. So overall, it's actually pretty impressive. Like for the price, it looks to be a very impressive grid style bot because he did a lot of the best practices for risk management, like total max drawdown limits, limiting the amount of scaling, limiting the total number of steps. So many of the steps he took here are actually really well built. So you can tell this guy knows what he's doing. This is a style of strategy, but he's using it well. So overall, I'm actually quite impressed. I personally am not a fan of using grids on my personal accounts just because, like, for the style of clients that we mostly work with who are a little bit who tend to put larger deposits in their accounts, like using single positions is usually just more appealing to these folks. but a lot of people, and some of my clients as well, use grid bots on smaller buckets of capital. So there is absolutely a use case there. Me personally, I like to cut my losers fast. I don't like to hold grids, just personal preferences. It isn't something I like. I like to get in and out pretty quickly, usually intraday. But if you like this style of bot, this one looks to be pretty well done. So guys, this will be a short video because it is what it is. There's nothing crazy here. We know why it trades. We know how it trades. We know the pros. We know the cons. So it's super transparent, and there's even a signal. So yeah, it looks like pretty solid if you like this style of bot. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.